continuing on, Shalom, continuing on with where the brother Mashallah left off at from Romans the 11th chapter and the 20th verse. We're going to start at Romans chapter 11 verse 21. Once again, I'm Priest Brother Tuabra Khan. I have reading for me in the background.
Praise Mashallah.
Right, so we're going to get down to business. All right, we're going to try to get more understanding of Romans 11 for the next 90 minutes, Lord's willing. So let's get into Romans, the 11th chapter, and let's get into the 21st verse.
For if the Most High spare not the natural branches, take heed lest he also spare not thee.
So the scripture said, if the Most High spare not the natural branches, now, Salah, we already got the understanding from previous episodes and scriptures that we pulled out. The brother Mashallah did. The branches natural was talking about the Israelites belonging to their own tree of knowledge of salvation. And the Most High didn't spare them. All right. And the reason why the Most High didn't spare the Israelites because they sinned. All right. They sinned, meaning they broke the laws of God and disrespected his son. So if the Most High didn't spare Israel, which are the natural branches, take heed lest he also spare not thee. That was a lesson for the Gentiles. That you saw what the Lord did to the Israelites, his people, who were supposed to receive their soul salvation because of the promises that the Lord made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All right, but look what happened to them because they didn't keep the commandments and they didn't do what they were supposed to do. So take heed lest you fall like them. All right, so going into idol worshiping and bringing in false doctrines, those are things that the Jews were doing that caused them to fall as a nation of people. All right, and Peter spoke about this. Hold that. Give me 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 1.
2 Peter chapter 2, verse 1.
Read.
But there were false prophets also among the people.
So what did Peter bring out?
But there were false prophets also among the people.
So the Peter told the Hebrews that there were false prophets among the people. All right, so after the Gentile incursion into our churches, there were false prophets that began to be brought out amongst the people. You understand? Especially during the time of the Middle Ages. All right. So what you got to understand is, certain people are saying that Romans 11 chapter is dealing with the average Gentile folk and the poor amongst the Gentiles, and it's not speaking of worldly powers or worldly rulers. But what I like to bring out is the fact of the matter is that, especially during the time of the Middle Ages, the churches, were basically part of the government of the ruling kingdoms. The ruling kingdoms basically answered or took heed to the churches, upon divine oracle or divine inspiration. All right, so the churches were basically running the kingdom. You understand? To a certain degree, you could look at it in that aspect as these Gentiles, which were later on, even though a lot of them died, yes, they did die, being destroyed in the omni pits, by Nero, Caesar, and the Roman emperors of that nature because they refused to stop teaching of a Christos or bringing out things about a Christos, which is what the Romans called Christ. All right, you did have some Gentiles that did manage to set up churches and actually convert a lot of Romans into quote-unquote Christianity, and which began the start of what is now known in history as the Holy Roman Empire, which was Roman paganism turned into Christianity and the belief of one God, which represents monotheism. You understand? So among these churches, they begin to become false prophets, doctrines. Read on.
All right, but there were false prophets also among the people, even as there shall be false teachers among them.
So Peter already warned the Hebrews that in the upcoming months and days ahead, you're going to have false teachers among you. Yeah, we know some of them could have been of Israel, but the bulk of it is referring to Gentiles. Amongst Israel in our churches. Read on.
Who privately shall bring in damnable heresies.
And that's how you know it's dealing with Gentiles, because the damnable heresies was referring to the pagan doctrines that the Gentiles were caught up in, in times past. You understand? So those doctrines begin to be brought in, such as, for example, the Holy Trinity, which goes back to the belief of three gods equal one God entity. Well, the Egyptians had that with Osiris. They had that with Osiris, Isis, and Horus. The Babylonians had that with Tammuz, Nimrod. You understand that? And Semiramis. You understand? So, and the Greeks had that with Zeus, Diana, and Ares, for example, or whatnot. Jupiter with the Romans. You understand? So the Romans, not the Romans, but the Christians begin to bring some of the pagan belief, God and spirit into these churches, into our churches. Which is the start of the birth of Holy Trinity. Okay, many that started during the Council of Nicaea with Constantine. Okay, a lot of these damnable heresies begin to be brought in. Read on.
Even denying the Lord that brought them.
Right, and a lot of times Christ and his teaching, okay, was being denied. Now it was brought out that it wasn't Christ that came. Okay, it was actually God Himself. Okay, it was God Himself that came down from the heavens, and basically He was the one that sacrificed Himself for the nation of people. You understand? So these are things that was being brought out, denying the teachings of Christ and Christ Himself. All right, read on.
And bring upon themselves swift destruction.
And the Lord said they would do what?
Bring upon themselves swift destruction.
Right, because what happens is that you even had some of these Gentiles, they begin to branch off and started different religions, such as Catholicism and also Islam. Okay, in which you had wars that was being fought all throughout the Middle Ages based upon these different teachings and damnable heresies. That was the Lord that allowed that to happen. Okay, and a lot of swift destruction amongst men was done because of these teachings and these damnable heresies during the time in the middle up into the Renaissance period of ages, even into this present day now time, concerning with the world religions as today. Yes, all controlled by Gentiles. You understand? Which does influence and affect worldly powers. Read on.
And many shall follow their pernicious ways, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of.
Right, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, basically, many people was caught up into the philosophies of the Gentiles and of their pernicious ways. All right, even up until this present time. When you look at the world religions today, the number 3 religions, Judaism, a false religion. Okay, Catholicism, a false religion. Christianity, false religion. Okay, Islam, false religion. Those are the 4 major world religions. Okay, that were all started by Gentiles. Okay, ran and governed by Gentiles. You understand? A lot of people caught up into that nonsense going back into after the death of Christ. Read on.
Verse 3. And through covetousness shall they with feigned words make merchandise of you.
Right, so in other words, the Gentiles will begin to start taking advantage of our people. They will start to take advantage of us and have us serve in their armies in the name of a false god. Have us serve in their armies in the name of a false doctrine. Okay, read on.
Whose judgment now of a long time lingereth not.
Read.
And their damnation slumbereth not.
Right, because now, basically by them doing these things, see, the Lord already knew the Gentiles were going to do this. That's why we read Book of Revelation, the Most High had already told the prophets, okay, not to measure the court of the Gentiles, but to leave it out. And when you go into the Greek, ekbalos means to cast out. All right, so the Lord already knew that the Gentiles were going to be judged for their wickedness and their evil. He already foresaw all these things coming. All right, so Peter was just telling the Hebrews that were scattered throughout Europe, beware of this, because a lot of these doctrines and heresies begin to spread like wildfire all throughout Europe during the Middle Ages. Read on.
4. If the Most High spared not the angels that sinned.
Right, and we just read in Romans 11:21. Basically, Peter's saying the same thing Paul said, in the aspect of like if he spared not the natural branches. And the reason why the natural branches fell was because of their sin. Okay, because they didn't want to keep the laws of God and they denied Yahushua, okay, or they denied the Most High Son. And the Lord did not spare them. Read.
But cast them down to hell.
Right, hell represents a low level, okay, like the grave or a low estate. And that's what happened to the nation of Israel. We began to become on a low level or a low estate. Whereas Jerusalem was burnt down and destroyed and the Gentiles trampled all over us. And they trampled all over us in general and our homeland. Read on.
And delivered them into chains of darkness.
Right, and that started confusion. All right. And we was robbed of our nationality. All right. At one time, we started calling ourselves after the names of the Gentiles. All right. Confusion of faces began to come abroad, like it spoke about in the prophet Daniel. Okay, righteousness belongeth unto you, O Lord, but unto us confusion of faces. All right, so now gross darkness to people. Confusion represents that darkness. All right, read.
To be reserved unto judgment.
Right, and there's only a certain amount of Israelites that the Lord is going to have wake up from amongst that gross darkness, man. All right, but as a nation of people, these people, okay, the 2/3 or the majority of our people, the Lord said they are reserved for chains of darkness. We get the scriptures, understanding of it rather. And Noah's not talking about angels sinning and having sex with women on earth. Okay, no, that's out. All right, and it's not dealing with the book of Enoch. Matter of fact, The definition of the word synagogue in the Bible dictionary, it tells you that the Jews was sought to gather all the collections of the books from the Old Testament, okay, and all the righteous books of the Lord, and it didn't make mention of the book of Enoch or the book of Jubilees.
Right.
It mentioned the Torah, it mentioned the book of the prophets, okay, but it did not mention the book of Jubilees or the book of Enoch. All right, so read on.
And spare not the old world.
Right, and the Most High didn't spare the old world neither. The old world meaning the world during the time of the flood, because there's going to be a new judgment. Because we read the 3rd chapter of the same book of 2 Peter. Peter goes into the judgment of the new world. Okay, the judgment, the new world, which was a world that Peter was living in, which is also the same world that we are living in today. So Peter's basically letting you know, letting the Gentiles and many of the Israelites know there is going to be a great judgment reserved. All right, because as you see what the Lord did to the old world, meaning the time of Noah prior to the flood. Read.
But save Noah the 8th person.
Right, Noah the 8th person, because only 8 people were saved. All right, so there's only a remnant that's going to be delivered from this destruction that's going to be come upon this new world. Read.
A preacher of righteousness.
Right, and a preacher of righteousness. And Noah was a chosen at that time. Okay, he was a chosen man of that time. And through his lineage, okay, through Shem, the God of Shem, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, came the 12 tribes of Israel. Read.
Bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly.
Right, the world of the ungodly was the wicked world at that time. Now, when you read chapter 3 of the same book here in 2 Peter, it speaks about the fire being a judgment of this modern day world of the ungodly. So everything that was done for our learning. That's why Peter was telling the Israelites to beware of this throughout Europe. All right, that the Gentiles will bring damnable heresies. Mainly, basically the Gentiles was going to go back into the form of idol worshiping, but they was going to do it in a different aspect of it. Even going so far as including Christ himself in the midst of this nonsense. Even exalting a woman in the name of Mary in the midst of this nonsense. And yes, exalting a woman is off.
That's right.
Okay, yes, whether it be at high holy days, Passovers, new moons. Okay, exalting women is off. Okay, we get the understanding of it, right? That's off. Our forefathers didn't do such things, right? And men that are doing those things got to stop it. Okay, stop it. Stop making these damn women's heads all swollen up more than what it already is, man. Okay, it's disgusting, man. All right, these things need not to be happening in Israel in order for Israel to do what they got to do to serve the Lord. Men are just including their nonsense into the servant of the Lord and exalting these women.
That's right.
All right, and that's exactly what the Gentiles were doing. They was promoting women worship just like the Babylonians were doing, just like the Assyrians, and just like the Persians and the Greeks and the Romans, all these other Gentiles that they had prior, okay, to the birth of Christ, man. All right, and then basically those same thoughts and goddess-like attributes resurrected in the form of Mary, okay, the Virgin Mary. The Immaculate Conception, the Holy Virgin Birth, okay, the Queen of Heaven theory doctrine, okay, that all goes into the exalting of the woman, the Holy Trinity, basically God, Christ, and the Holy Spirit, and even going so far as saying Mary, the Mother of God, okay, that all goes into women worshiping, and men got to stop that ephemerate vibration spirit, all right, it's not necessary to do that to serve the Most High while Yahweh Shah. All these were damnable heresies that was being brought into our churches that you still got a lot of Israelites doing, even in these last days, even amongst this nation right now, this minute. Okay, and that's wrong. And the Most High is not dealing with that spirit. Okay, because the Lord said, the flock of my pasture is men. Okay, these are they which were not defiled with women. We read Revelation, the 14th chapter, because that's exactly what the Gentiles were pushing and promoting. Go back to Romans chapter 11, verse 21. And the Lord say, don't learn the ways of the heathen. The heathen was famous for exalting their women during their festivities. When you read the book of Esther, the 1st chapter, that's exactly what happened. Okay, the king at the time wanted to exalt his queen in front of people. Okay, we read the book of Esther, the 1st chapter. And because he was always into that spirit of exalting his woman turned against him and became proud and decided not to do as she was told whenever she was being summoned. You can read Esther, the 1st chapter on your own to get to understanding. You brothers out there, don't be involved in that nigger woman or that damn Hispanic woman or that Native American woman or any damn woman worshiping spirit that's out there within the nation of Israel right now. That's an off wicked demon spirit that's on the minds of men. Yeah. Okay, give me Romans chapter 11, verse 21. Part of that reason we was going into that Jeremiah the 44th chapter that goes